Chapter 1326, A loose tongue may cause a lot of troubles. Well, it's known that Agaric Castle is rich in poisonous mushrooms, among which the five-colored toadstool and the rainbow toadstool are the most potent. If by chance I can purchase these two poisonous mushrooms, I can refine some poison pills that will greatly help us deal with our safety issues. You're also proficient in refining poison pills, Your Majesty? Star Tears was surprised. Well, I'm naturally proficient in things that can protect my life or even kill enemies, mind you. Tangsho slightly smiled. Star Tears couldn't help but roll her eyes in secret. Despite having a firm mentality, she was still speechless by Tangsho because she had never seen someone so afraid of death. No matter what kind of situation, this guy always put his safety as his priority for fear that he would be killed one day due to lacking in life-saving means. So much for one who calls himself a heavenly emperor, huh? Star Tears finally defined Tangsho as such inwardly. At Agaric Castle. It was city-shaped like a mushroom. This city couldn't be compared with the other large cities Tangsho had visited, but countless races lived here, and the number was in the hundreds of millions. Cultivators riding their swords or immortals who expelled out their enormous aura could be seen here and there. Various races and sentient beings with various appearances bustled about using all kinds of means. The more they approached Agaric Castle, the more frequent they ran into cultivators. However, every cultivator who lived in the immortal world had unique eyesight, and just from the golden barouche rode by Tangsho's group alone was enough to tell them that these four people were very powerful. After all, just those cloud-piercer beasts that radiated a soft white light alone seemed to be top-grade immortal beasts. Quickly after, Tangsho's group was only 500 kilometers away from the Agaric Castle city gate. In order not to attract unneeded attention, the four of them got off the golden barouche and Tangsho put away the carriage and the cloud-piercer beasts into the heavenly abode artifact, as they then flew to Agaric Castle. How long has it been since I came here last time? Thousands of years ago? Tangsho looked around at the small mushroom-like buildings in the surroundings and couldn't help but lament. Thousands of years, huh? Star Tears couldn't help but smack her lips, shooting a contemptuous look at Tangsho. She didn't buy it at all. After all, an immortal, precisely an ordinary one, could only live for several thousands of years. In the city. The shout of peddlers crying out their wares continuously filled the atmosphere, and all kinds of shops and stalls tried their best to attract patrons from all walks of life. Phantasmagoric House. It was a large shop inside Agaric Castle that looked impressive just from its outside appearance alone. The rest of the shops were seen as having a lot of clerks acting like marketers, crying out loud to attract patrons to their shops. But the Phantasmagoric House only had four big men standing outside that gazed at the pedestrians coldly, just like guards on the lookout. This is the place. Tangsho used to patronize this place, but there was no Phantasmagoric House back then, which meant this shop was not an old player here. However, being able to occupy such a huge shop in the Agaric Castle displayed that the owner, family, or clan must be quite strong. After entering, a huge open space with many poisonous mushrooms that looked to be in the wrong place suddenly presented before their eyes. Judging from their quality, however, all of them were just ordinary poisonous mushrooms. Aside from all these mushrooms, there were also some other products, but the quality was average. Welcome to our emporium, distinguished patrons. May I know what you would like to purchase? A beautiful lady clerk in white greeted and inquired with a professional smile. I want to buy some poisonous mushrooms, and the grade must be at least 5-colored. If your Phantasmagoric House has them and the price is affordable, I'll pay for it directly. But I'll be disappointed if you don't have any and will leave right away. 5-colored toadstool? And that was the lowest quality? The lady clerk's expression shifted and she observed Tangsho's group of four a while. Then, she nodded and said, "Then please follow me to the 6th floor. The valuable goods of our Phantasmagoric House are stored on the 6th floor." However, honorable patron may have to prepare psychologically since the goods there are very expensive. It's your business to set the goods to be expensive or cheap, but it's their value and worth that matters to me. Tang Xiu calmly said, if you do have some great items here, I'll be happy to buy them even if I must spend more. The sales lady in white slightly smiled and took the 4 to the 6th floor. A spacious hall suddenly appeared in front of everyone with a total of 108 booths inside, each displaying one item. Hey, Eastberg, I saw these octogems golden lotus minaret first. I won't give up on them. Don't ever think you can use the power of your vast martial sect to provoke me here. Worst comes worst, I'll just kill you and leave. A long silver-haired old man with a cane glared at a man surrounded by 5 others and sharply shouted. The leader of the 5 men, a cruel-looking man with a hooked nose and triangular eyes, grimly glared back at the old man and coldly said, "Humph, you can try. The vast martial sect's powerhouses will be arriving here before you can kill me. Old bastard, the octogem's golden lotus minaret is an artifact that can only be fully controlled by a golden immortal. You're just a celestial immortal, old shit, yet you want to have it?" The old man angrily shouted, "Why can't I have it, shithead? I can naturally use it when I break through to the golden immortal stage one day, but one can only come across this octogem's golden lotus minaret serendipitously." Eastberg clenched his fists and directly pinched a message token to send a message after seeing the vicious look in the old man's eyes. Afterward, he proudly stated, "You can act arrogant now, but when the experts from my sect come here, you'll definitely kneel and beg for mercy." The old man's expression changed and his expression turned hesitant. Then, he turned to the reticent attendant of the shop and said in a deep voice, "You also know the immortal world's custom that a treasure that is seen and fancied by many people goes to the highest bidder, right?" The shop assistant nodded and said, "That's right. Would you like it to be tendered?" "That's right. I'd like to have it tendered." The old man firmly said, "The price of the octogem's golden lotus minaret is 2 million immortal crystals. I bid 2.1 million for it." Eastberg shouted angrily, "Hey, old bastard, you dare to show off your wealth to me? You're really looking to be abused here. I bid 3 million immortal crystals for this octogem's golden lotus minaret." The old man slightly frowned and followed coldly. 4 million. Eastberg shouted, 5 million. The old man's frown went deeper. After a long silence, he slowly said, 5.5 million immortal crystals. That's all I can take out. If you can bid higher, you can have this octogem's golden lotus minaret. Eastberg's face turned black. Although he was very rich, the elder of his family, who was a senior official of the vast martial sect, usually gave him many immortal crystals, but all he had on him now was only 6 million immortal crystals. If he were to take out so many immortal crystals all of a sudden, he would be dirt poor for the next 100 years. However, if he didn't obtain it, he would lose face in front of this old bastard. He wouldn't be able to lift his head up high for many years once today's matter was to be spread out. 5.6 million immortal crystals. Eastberg gritted his teeth and shouted sharply. The old man looked bitter and shook his head before he turned around to leave. 6 million immortal crystals. Nearby, Tang Xiu slightly chuckled and immediately went towards them. The old man who was just about to leave suddenly had a change in expression and immediately refrained from leaving, looking at Tang Xiu with a surprised face. Tang Xiu glanced at the shop assistant and smilingly said, "Facing such a treasure, the one who bids the highest will get it, isn't that right?" "You're right." The shop assistant smiled. Tang Xiu then shifted to Eastberg and asked, "You want to continue bidding? If you don't, then this octogem's golden lotus minaret artifact is mine. If you keep bidding, I'll continue to increase the bid as well." Eastberg never dreamed that someone would disrupt him halfway. He glared at Tang Xiu fiercely and angrily shouted, "Just from where this dog's hit came? Do you even think you're qualified to compete with this big daddy? Are you tired of living already?" Slap. Tang Xiu moved lightning fast, slapped his face, and sent him flying tens of meters away before the guy heavily fell on the floor. He then sneered and said, daring to act so arrogantly in front of me? You're the first of those who dare to insult me and have not died yet. Beware. F***CK. You dare to hit someone from the vast martial sect? You really are tired of living, aren't you? The Earth Immortal expert of the vast martial sect angrily roared and attacked, and the other three beside him also unleashed their immortal swords with postures ready to go all out. You know, I didn't kill you to give face to the owner of this shop. Tang Xiu sneered. But since you're looking for death, then let me fulfill your wish. Just as his voice faded away, a streak of light was shot and instantly hit the four people, directly killing them without them being able to block or evade it. The one who took action was Battle Peng. The shop assistant wanted to stop him, but he was too late and could only helplessly watch the four people be killed. He hurriedly shouted, "Hey, you're not allowed to kill anyone in our shop." After Battle Peng killed the four people in a flash, he didn't stop moving and quickly beheaded Eastberg and punched his body into a pulp. Only then did he look satisfied and said, "My master already gave you face and only slapped this guy. Yet they insisted on courting their own deaths, so we had no choice but to act accordingly. You guys." The shop assistant was furious. Tang Xiu coldly stared at him and overbearingly said, "What's wrong? We killed them and that's it. What's the big deal? Just some ants and you want to bother about such a trivial thing? Your phantasmagoric house is running a business here but pokes your nose in others' business often. You may easily provoke troubles for yourself. You had better shut the hell up and deal with me directly." Whoosh. A figure flickered and instantly appeared before everyone lightning fast. The figure was a man with a refined and gentle scholarly aura holding a fan and shaking it. He glanced at the four bodies on the floor and said indifferently, "What you just said does have some truth to it, mister. But the custom of our phantasmagoric house must never be broken. We have no choice but to meddle in unless you have the strength to shake us off. I can kill you within 2 breaths. Do you believe it or not?" Battle Peng sneered. The middle-aged man was also a golden immortal, but his complexion changed when he sensed the aura instantly released by Battle Peng. He lightly smiled and said, "Just one golden immortal is perhaps not enough to scare off Phantasmagoric House, mind you." Chapter 1327 Expensive Information. Star Tears, who stood next to Tang Xiu, only released her aura in a flash, but the middle-aged man was paralyzed and looked horrified, while his attitude turned 180 degrees all of a sudden. "Please forgive me for offending you, senior." The middle-aged man felt very uneasy and he suddenly became very respectful. After all, no matter how powerful a golden immortal was, there were only a few perfected golden immortals in any immortal domain. Even the strongest people in Agric Castle were very likely only at the late-stage golden immortal stage. Star Tears herself was too lazy to bother about this man and kept silent while standing next to Tang Xiu calmly. "So 6 immortal crystals for this thing, yes," said Tang Xiu indifferently. The middle-aged man hurriedly said, "No, just 2 million immortal crystals, and this octogem golden lotus minaret is yours. I don't think anyone will dare to object." The pale-faced old man hurriedly nodded with a timid look and said, "I won't dare object either. Only someone like Senior has the qualification to use this treasure." Tang Xiu slightly smiled and he took out 2 million immortal crystals, threw them to the middle-aged man, and said, "I need all colored poisonous mushrooms, or best, some 7-colored ones. Your shop assistant took me to this 6th floor, so you have some of them for sale, right? Our store does have all colored poisonous mushrooms, and it's quite coincidental that we happened to receive the shipment 2 days ago. However, we have no 7-colored ones at the moment. If honored patron really needs them, you have to wait for some time. We have spent several years on the arrangement and we should be close to harvesting it, so when the time comes, we'll have the 7-colored toadstool delivered here. How long will it take, exactly? Asked Tang Xiu. About 3 months if there's no accident, said the middle-aged man. Tang Xiu nodded and slowly said, then sell me the 5 colored ones first. I'll give 100,000 immortal crystals as a deposit first and I'll return here to buy the 7 colored ones 3 months later. The middle-aged man hesitated and said, honored patron, the price of a 5-colored toadstool is already very expensive. The 7-colored ones are much higher. Are you really going to buy them? What are the prices for 2 toadstools, exactly? Asked Tang Xiu. The 5-colored ones are priced at 1 million immortal crystals, and the 7-colored ones are at 8 million immortal crystals, answered the middle-aged man. Tang Xiu then directly handed him 2 million immortal crystals and lightly said, then I will give you 1 million more as a deposit. The remaining 7 million will be paid to you directly when I see the 7-colored toadstool. After all, spending a little money is nothing to me. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he happily smiled. Please rest assured, honored patron. I'll definitely keep the 7-colored toadstools for you when the shipment arrives. Quickly after, Tang Xiu took the fist-sized 5-colored toadstool and was secretly happy inwardly when he looked at it. 5-colored toadstools could be concocted to some very good poison pills, but if he could get the 7-colored ones, the poison pill he refined was likely able to cause heavy damage to perfected golden immortals. All right, let's head out. Tang Xiu then took his group to leave the phantasmagoric house. Just as they walked for a kilometer on the street with an endless stream of people, Tang Xiu's expression shifted and a surprised look appeared in his eyes. He then turned his head and said, let's head to the tea house in front. Bring that man to me. I'll be waiting. Battle Pang slightly nodded and bolted towards the old man stalking them. A few minutes after, when the scented tea from the tea house was just delivered to Tang Xiu, the old man stalker strode into the tea house. He hesitated for a short while and looked at Tang Xiu vigilantly. You can speak now. Tang Xiu took a sip of the scented tea and looked at the old man. The old man took a deep breath and said in a low voice, may I ask whether Senior has 1 million crystal essences? Tang Xiu pursed his brows and said, 1 million crystal essences is nothing but a small amount of money I can take out at any time. Why do you ask? The old man looked happy and asked again, I wonder if Senior has ever heard of the Soul Pursuit token? Tang Xiu's complexion changed and he nodded. Soul Pursuit token originated from Battle Soul Supreme, and there's only 9 of them circulating in the immortal world. 6 of them have appeared, and each person who once held it was able to make a request to Battle Soul Supreme, where he then acted to fulfill the request of the person regardless of what it was. You're mistaken in this regard, said the old man. The 7th Soul Pursuit token actually appeared around 260 years ago. After Battle Soul Supreme received the Soul Pursuit token, he chased Chromatic Serpent Supreme for a century before he finally killed him in some desolate ruins. So there are still 2 Soul Pursuit tokens left. Tang Xiu squinted his eyes and faintly asked, do you have a Soul Pursuit token, by chance? The old man shook his head. No. I have no Soul Pursuit token, but I have information about it. If Senior is willing to pay me 1 million crystal essences, I can tell you about it. I guarantee the reliability of this information and the fact that it's not difficult to obtain. There's one thing I want to know, however. How many times have you sold the information about this Soul Pursuit token? Asked Tang Xiu lightly. No, I haven't sold the info to anyone. The old man shook his head. You're the first. Tang Xiu nodded. Let's see. If your info is true, I can give you 1 million crystal essences. But, let me tell you bluntly now. I can only give you 500,000 crystal essences now, and I'll pay you the remaining 500,000 when I obtain the Soul Pursuit token. No problem. The old man looked excited and transmitted his voice. The Soul Pursuit token is now enshrined in the vast martial sect and is guarded by its ancestor, the only perfected golden immortal there, along with 18 golden immortals. And how did you know that? Asked Tang Xiu with a frown. A look of hatred gleamed in the eyes of the old man. He clenched his fists and fiercely said, "The daughter of the vice sect master of vast martial sect was the woman I loved. But since I have no background and lack aptitude in cultivation, I was eventually beaten and she died under the pressure of her own section. I've been hating myself for having no abilities, else I'd have killed the entire vast martial sect myself." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "Sorry if this made you recall something unpleasant. Take this 500,000 crystal essences. I'll contact you personally when I get the soul pursuit token and give you the rest. But if you deceive me, I promise you'll be under endless pursuit no matter which corner of Immortal domain you try to hide." The old man received 500,000 crystal essences and firmly said, "If Senior doesn't trust me, you can first cast a seal on me. I know that many top powerhouses can cast such tracing seals." Tang Xiu slightly smiled and came to the old man's front. He patted his shoulder gently and, after asking his message token, he then turned around and left. "He already cast a seal on me?" The old man's expression shifted and watched Tang Xiu leave. But his expression was complicated as he never noticed how Tang Xiu cast and put that seal on him. Outside Agaric Castle. Tang Xiu's eyes were gleaming. He didn't plan to go to the vast martial sect immediately. After all, there was a perfected golden immortal holding the fort there. Buzz. After activating the message token, Tang Xiu led Battle Peng's group of 3 to continue his journey. Sacred Dragon Immortal Domain. This region could definitely be ranked in the top 10 among all the large immortal domains in the immortal world. Golden immortals could be seen literally everywhere in this region, and one could run into perfected golden immortals often. Even some supremes appeared in this region occasionally. The headquarters of the convict arena was set up in the Sacred Dragon Immortal Domain, and it had even become a city by itself named Prison Cell City. The southern area of Prison Cell City. In a dilapidated courtyard, old Sycamore laid on the deck chair, comfortably hiccuped and hummed some tunes, while a horned wolf crouched and curled up at his feet with a listless look. Ding, ding. The silver bell at the door suddenly sounded and a ponytailed teenage girl appeared in the courtyard like a gust of wind, and cried out with a smiling face, "Hey, Grandpa Sycamore, you have some guests." Old Sycamore rolled his eyes and hummed. You know this old thing just killed some kittens and puppies a few days ago, right? My old bones have been worked out too hard, my whole body is now hurting. Just tell your mother to receive the guests, will you? Oh dear, I'm really too old and really vexed now. Just a few errands are enough to make my back to ache and my legs to cramp. The lass appeared beside him with a smiling face as she reached out and twisted the old man's ears, grinningly saying, "Mom has already gone to guide other guests and the 2 of us are the only ones left at home. Do you really want to make me work as a guide now?" Old Sycamore was startled, shook off the girl's hand, and shook his head, "No. You're not leaving. I'll go. Which time have you not made tons of troubles when you became a guide? Stay still and I'll go by myself." But it's weird, though. Didn't you say some guests are here? Why can't I see any of them? The lass pursed her lips and hummed. Humph, those guests have a big appetite. They're shouting that they want old Sycamore to come out and greet them personally. Well, I originally wanted to pour him a pot of cold water, but whoever thought that he got some powerful goons around him. Those 2 people made me a bit scared. Old Sycamore's eyes were gleaming, but he still sluggishly got up. While dragging his body outside, he said, "Those who want me to greet personally are likely my old customers. But you lass who is never afraid of some perfected golden immortals, yet there are some who can make you scared stiff like that now. That's quite interesting." The girl rolled her eyes and followed with a grin. Outside the courtyard. After old Sycamore saw the 4 people, his eyes instantly narrowed. He especially paused for a while when he saw Star Tears before turning to Tang Xiu, who was obviously the leader. Then, he asked with a smile, "Greetings, and nice to meet you, honored guest. You look unfamiliar, but you turn out to know this old sycamore. May I know which lord recommended me to you? A complicated expression flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes, and he said with a slight smile, there was a little beggar who talked about the small sycamore in Prison Cell City. I just didn't expect that the small sycamore has now become an old sycamore. Little beggar. Old Sycamore's body trembled and a sharp and fierce light gleamed in his eyes. His rickety body straightened up in a flash. An enormous aura burst out of him and he shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you, mister? How do you know him?" Chapter 1328, Enormous Spending. You can call me Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, said Tang Xiu calmly. As for how I know, it's inconvenient to tell you now. Old Sycamore, there's something I need to do in the Prison Cell City and I want you to be my guide here. I'll reward you handsomely if you do well. Old Sycamore stared fixedly at Tang Xiu. After 15 minutes, he took a deep breath and his figure returned to his rickety state again while also converging his aura. Little beggar was his blood brother, once the new rising star in the immortal world who attracted the attention of numerous powerful people, aside from his other identity as the disciple of star cultivation Great Emperor. It had been more than 5,000 years. Those who knew that he was the elder brother of Little Beggar absolutely had a very good relationship with him. But those people, most of them had died already, right? All right, I'll be your guide. Old Sycamore withdrew his stare, waved at the little lass next to him, and said in a deep voice, I'm leaving, but you must stay at home honestly, got it? If I found you sneaked out, you'll be grounded for hundreds of years. The little girl hesitated and suddenly became listless and grunted unhappily. Then, she dangled back to the courtyard's gate and slammed the house's door. Old Sycamore looked at Tang Xiu and asked, where would you like to go? There's no place and nothing in the Prison Cell City I don't know about. Tang Xiu glanced at him, turned towards the main building of Convict Arena, and lightly said, don't brag and boast that big first. Even if you lived here for millennia, it's very likely there are many things you don't know. Old Sycamore smiled in response and asked, for instance? Just like who is the owner of the Convict Arena? Do you even know that person? Asked Tang Xiu. This, Old Sycamore was speechless and flung his face, looking a bit embarrassed. Tang Xiu smiled indifferently and looked at Dragonfly, saying, hey, Keto. You tell me about his cultivation level. Dragonfly replied, Master, he's very strong at least at the perfected golden immortal stage and he's even more powerful than Lady Star Tears. Ah. That's right. He's also currently injured, though his injury is not serious. Old Sycamore's pace came to a halt and he looked dumbly at Tang Xiu and Dragonfly with incredulity on his face. Those who knew that he was a perfected golden immortal in the entire immortal world was not over 3 people, including himself. And yet, how did this guy know about it? Who exactly are these people? Old Sycamore vaguely sensed that he couldn't hide anything in front of these people. The realization made him inwardly nervous. After keeping up with Tang Xiu's footsteps, he inquired. Honored guest, may I know what items you'd like to buy, or the place you're going? I'm going to the Convict Arena's prison cells for perfected golden immortals, answered Tang Xiu. Are you perhaps going to gamble, honored guest? Or, are you? I want to buy some perfected golden immortals, said Tang Xiu. Old Sycamore's pupils contracted and he suddenly realized that Tang Xiu should be a big figure with rich financial resources. After pondering for a while, he said, if you want to purchase some perfected golden immortals, you don't need to go directly to the Convict Arena's perfected golden immortal cells. I know a place that sells perfected golden immortals. Besides, there are only about 60 perfected golden immortal gladiators in Prison Cell City. Those 60+ people have their records and identities recorded and known to countless people. But the place I just told you about is keeping the identity of these gladiators confidential, though the number is much fewer. Then take me there. After saying that, Tang Xiu asked again, what's exactly the number and their strength and background? No more than 10 people, but they are very strong. Even those deathmatch gladiators in the convict arena are inferior to them. They are all of different races and kind of some lord-level characters that lorded over some remote immortal domains. You know, the convict arena has a kind of mysterious team that keeps expanding its territory to the remote immortal domains. At the same time, they also hunt and capture golden immortals as well as perfected golden immortals for trafficking, and to increase the number of deathmatch fighters for the convict arena. Tang Shou slightly nodded. He had heard of these issues but never paid attention to it before since he thought that convict arena was just some small existence. But looking at it now, he was keenly aware that the convict arena was much more terrifying. It could be said that it may be ranked in the top 10 major forces in the immortal world. Deathmatch Gate. It was the place mentioned by Old Sycamore. When everyone entered the ordinary-looking building, an aged yet charming beautiful woman welcomed them and smilingly said, "Hey, Old Sycamore, did you bring these guests to buy something here?" "Yup," said Old Sycamore. "Well, you know the rules. Take them inside." The woman smiled and said, "But you'll be responsible if things go wrong, capiche?" "Got it." Old Sycamore nodded with a smile and led the 4 inside. After the 5 of them entered, only then did they discover that the place was a heavenly abode artifact. It was because the space inside was very huge and 100 times larger than it looked from the outside. "Well, let's go straight ahead, honored guest." Old Sycamore smiled and said, "That's the place where the deathmatch fighters placed for sale are gathered. If you take the left passage, you'll arrive at the place where you can buy immortal cultivation arts manuals and various manuals for secret arts, divine abilities, and the likes. If you take the right passage, you'll find a place that sells all kinds of weapons." Tang Shou's expression shifted and he said, "Let's head to the weapons place first." Old Sycamore slightly smiled and took Tang Shou through the kilometer-long passage and then entered a vast hall. Countless weapons were seen arranged in an orderly manner inside, with each shortcomings, features, and rank recorded on their labels. Defense-type artifacts. After going deeper inside, Tang Shou quickly found a variety of defensive artifacts for sale. The dazzling array of items here were truly breathtaking. Immortal artifacts were divided into 9 grades. The first and second grades were suitable for ordinary immortals, the third for earth immortals, fourth for celestial immortals use, fifth for profound immortals, sixth suited golden immortals, seventh for perfected golden immortals, and 8th grade suited those at the supremacy stage. As for the 9th grade immortal artifacts, they were for the top-rank supremes who were able to unleash their full might. Tang Shou then found 7th grade immortal artifacts based on the label tagged. He observed for some time and then said, "Battle Pang, Star Tears, you two choose defensive artifacts for yourselves." Understood. Both of them were slightly shaken inwardly but quickly picked up a defensive artifact that satisfied them. Tang Shou quietly observed the remaining 18 defensive artifacts on display and couldn't help shake his head secretly. Each of these 18 defensive artifacts could withstand the full blow of perfected golden immortals without getting destroyed, though it would still be shattered should it face continuous blows. Old Sycamore, I suppose this place also has some 9th grade immortal artifacts, yes? Yes. There are only 3 9th grade defensive artifacts here, and all of them are inside the array. Each one of them is very expensive. I don't think a perfected golden immortal can buy any of them even with all their wealth, said Old Sycamore. Take me there, said Tang Shou. Old Sycamore walked 100 steps ahead before he stopped at the corner. Then, he casually cast a seal. Immediately after, 3 transparent illuminations suddenly appeared and 3 items appeared in it. Myriad Toad Golden Armor. Celestial Soul Sphere. 9 Thunder Paragon Garb. Tang Shou calmly scrutinized the 3 9th grade immortal artifacts. Then, he turned to Old Sycamore and said, "Notify the person in charge of this place and tell the person to see me." Understood. It took only less than 15 minutes for old Sycamore to leave and come back with the previous aged yet charming beautiful female. Honored patron, have you picked the items you like? The beautiful woman glanced at the 3 ninth-grade defensive artifacts, and a bizarre light flashed in her eyes when she asked with a smile. Tang Xiu nodded and said, 3 defensive artifacts in total. 2 of them are 8th grade, and this 9 Thunder Paragon garb. How much for all of them? This 9 Thunder Paragon garb is priced at 20 million crystal essences, and 12 million crystal essences for 2 8th grade defensive artifacts, for a total 32 million crystal essences. Also, old Sycamore said you have a deep relationship with him, so I'm giving you a 2 million discount. Thus, you only need 30 million crystal essences to pay for them. Tang Xiu took out 30 million crystal essences and handed it to the beautiful woman. Thank you. Well, if you want to thank someone, thank old Sycamore. The woman shook her head and smiled. Anyway, do you need anything else? I want to buy some perfected golden immortal gladiators. 6 of them, to be precise, said Tang Xiu. The beautiful woman's expression suddenly changed slightly. She thought Tang Xiu was just an ordinary immortal. She didn't expect him to have such deep and fearsome financial resources. Please follow me. The beautiful woman shot a deep look at Tang Xiu before turning and walking away. Inside another space. As the group arrived, Tang Xiu saw thousands of cages on both sides, each separated by a kilometer. All levels of gladiators could be seen here, from ordinary cultivators to golden immortal gladiators. After the woman came to the innermost side with the group, she cast a seal and a vortex portal suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. After they entered it, they saw 9 cages forming a circle, and each cage was occupied by a perfected golden immortal gladiator. This price. Using his spiritual sense to read the price tag on each cell, Tang Xiu's expression slightly changed, because the cheapest perfected golden immortal gladiator here was priced at 12 million crystal essences, whereas the messy blue-haired woman who sat cross-legged was priced at 21 million crystal essences. Can the price be discounted? Tang Xiu looked at the beautiful woman and asked. The woman shook her head and smilingly replied, I'm sorry. This price is already the lowest we can offer. I can only give you a small discount if you really buy 6 perfected golden immortal gladiators. Tang Xiu secretly forced a wry smile inside. All the immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences he had now were only worth around 60 million crystal essences, some of them including those he obtained from the interspatial rings he took from those 6 perfected golden immortal subordinates of Zither Demon Jiuyao they killed before. Tang Xiu then looked at old Sycamore and said, lend me 20 million crystal essences. I'll double the repayment a century later. Old Sycamore hesitated for a moment and said, I do have 20 million crystal essences, but why should I believe you? Tang Xiu wryly smiled. I can't come up with something that can make you believe in me. But if you do have a great relationship with Little Beggar, I think you can lend me the money. Old Sycamore scrutinized Tang Xiu for a long while before he threw a ring and lightly said, there are 20 million crystal essences inside. I don't need you to pay it back double, but I hope you can give an explanation in the future. Chapter 1329, Karmic Ties of the Past. Tang Xiu took a deep breath and nodded. I promise I'll give you a satisfactory explanation in the future. Further, I owe you a favor as well. Come to the Great Tang Empire if you have any needs in the future. With that said, Tang Xiu took out all his immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences and handed them to the beautiful manager of the convict arena, saying, 6 perfected golden immortals, including that sable fiend Scorpio. I've counted the total sum I have, which is 84.6 million crystal essences. Even though I borrowed 20 million crystal essences, I still have to fork out 60 million crystal essences. A surprised look glittered in the woman's eyes as she nodded and slowly said, you can save the 600,000 crystal essences. Having said that, she took out 6 soul plates, handed them to Tang Xiu, and personally opened the 6 cells to unchain each of the perfected golden immortals chained inside. Sable Fiend Scorpio, Celestial Litho Monstrum, Flaming Demon Feline, Golden-Eyed Great Pong, Lupus Chimera Monstrum, and Nether Sea Whale King, the 6 of you are slaves of Great Tang Heavenly Emperor starting today. I've handed over your soul plates to him, so your lives are now in his hands. The beautiful woman glanced at the 6 people and said in a deep voice. The 6 deathmatch fighters that had gone through 300 battles in the arena stared fixedly at Tang Xiu. Their whole bodies were full of death energy and unruliness was evident in their expressions. Even though Tang Xiu controlled their lives, he bought them at such a high price, so they were not worried that Tang Xiu would kill them and very likely only wanted them to fully serve him. After refining the 6 soul plates and completely controlling their lives, Tang Xiu then lightly stated, "My commands will take priority over anything else including your lives in the future. Certainly, I won't mind punishing one of you as a warning for the rest, so which one of you wants to try to disobey my will first? Killing one to warn the rest?" The 6 perfected golden immortal deathmatch gladiators suddenly had a change in complexion. Their unruly expressions slightly changed. None of them wanted to die, let alone become such a chicken on the chopping block. "We're leaving, old sycamore." Tang Xiu nodded at the beautiful woman and turned to outside. Old Sycamore didn't reply, nor did he even greet the woman. He just walked outside beside Tang Xiu. When they came to the gate, he asked, "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, where shall we go next?" Tang Xiu's lips wriggled a few times. As Battle Peng handed him 10 immortal crystals, Tang Xiu received them and handed it to Old Sycamore. "It's a reward for you. Fate will make us meet again in the future." Having said that, he led the group towards the distance. 10 immortal crystals? Old Sycamore stared blankly at the 10 immortal crystals in his hand. Some memories that had been sealed in his heart suddenly gushed out like a flood destroying a dam. It was thousands of years ago. He was just a boy less than 9 years old, wandering the streets with his younger brother to beg around, hoping to get some alms and leftovers. They were driven out, beaten, and abused like livestock that even slave traders were unwilling to capture. However, on that fateful day, month, and year, the brothers stole 2 expensive pieces of clothing but were discovered by its owner and nearly killed. At that moment, he vowed that he'd kill the man who beat him if he lived. He also vowed to kill the man who had abused the brothers. At that time, he had even made plans to go all out to get some money to buy a cultivation art manual and become a powerful cultivator. And at that moment, a great figure suddenly blocked the sun for the brothers. But his younger brother knelt behind that great figure who had rescued them, shouting that he wanted to acknowledge him as master. In his eyes at the time, it was just a dream, something people like them should not dare to imagine. But eventually, that man halted his pace and asked his brother a few questions before he agreed to accept him as his disciple, though he must take his brother away. "How long are we leaving for, exactly?" It was the only question he asked at the time, and the answer he got was, "Thousands of years at the earliest and eternity at the longest." He didn't leave, however. He couldn't wait for 1,000 years, nor did he want to regret it for eternity. But in the end, his brother was taken away by that great figure, whereas he stayed. Old Sycamore clearly remembered that before his brother was taken away, that great figure handed him 10 immortal crystals and said something he never forgot for the rest of his life. "It's a reward for you. Fate will make us meet again in the future." Now the scenes of the past unfolded yet again. Old Sycamore's bleeding heart opened up. That majestic and unparalleled figure looked so familiar and yet so real. Are you him?" Old Sycamore chased ahead a few steps forward with a face full of excitement as he shouted aloud. After he shouted this sentence, however, disappointment from deep within his soul gushed forth and filled his whole heart, as though his whole being had fallen into a glacier hole. He knew that he had lost his reason for a moment. Because that man, just like his brother, was already dead. Some kilometers away, Tang Xiu's pace came to a halt as he slowly turned around. Watching the ghastly pale-looking old sycamore, his lips squirmed a few times, and finally, he transmitted his voice he didn't plan to speak out to old sycamore's ears. "I'm really sorry." Having said that, Tang Xiu took everyone to speed up and disappeared from old sycamore's sight. "Sorry? You're saying sorry?" Old sycamore's pupils shrunk all of a sudden and incredulity burst in his eyes. His figure flickered and became hazy as he disappeared out of thin air under countless people's attention. Hundreds of thousands of miles away. Old sycamore appeared atop a mountain peak, looking at the empty scene around him, yet his heart was shivering and wildly throbbing. People said that the older and more experienced a person was, the wiser and more sophisticated his or her mind became. He had lived for thousands of years and had become extremely wise and sophisticated. Just that sorry a word and the line, "I'm sorry," that man spoke was enough to shock him to the core. His younger brother was long dead. Although that man did go on a rampage for the crazy slaughter to annihilate the culprits. However, of all people in this world, he was indeed the only one who owed him that one sentence, those 3 words. In this world, that man was the only person who would ever say those 3 words to him. Old sycamore clenched his fists, eyes flashing with madness as he roared loudly, "I will find you since I know that you're still alive." This old sycamore originally thought to have no longer any concern in this life, yet it turns out that you're still around. That's right. Even though he didn't leave with Tang Xiu back then, he, like his younger brother, had regarded that majestic figure as his real family member. That man had treated both of them very well. What's more, it was because those 10 immortal crystals that man gave him that he was able to buy a cultivation manual, though it was a common one. It was because of those 10 immortal crystals that he could buy those elixirs even though they were the lowest grade pills. However, it was the very cause of him becoming stronger and granted him the ability to kill all the enemies who had bullied the brothers. Thousands of years ago, he was able to become an immortal due to his younger brother sending him some elixirs that allowed him to ascend. Thousands of years ago, he was able to become an earth immortal due to the cultivation resources his younger brother sent that allowed him to break through successfully. It was also his younger brother who sent him immortal elixirs and nectars that made him able to advance to the celestial immortal stage thousands of years ago. That younger brother of his also sent a lot of elixirs, immortal crystals, and crystal essences that made his cultivation continue to improve. Under the support of huge resources, he finally broke through to the profound immortal stage and golden immortal stage. He had now become a perfected golden immortal. Even though only 3 people knew that he had become a perfected golden immortal in the entire immortal world, it was a fact that he had truly become a genuine powerhouse in the eyes of countless walks of life. He had disappeared time and again during the past hundreds of years whenever the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect was besieged by powerful enemies, only to come back with a body full of scars every time. Nobody knew that he was there to pay that debt of gratitude. It was to repay the debt of gratitude both for him and his younger brother. Old Sycamore's complexion suddenly changed as his keen sense caught several extremely faint fluctuation auras in the air. A fierce and cold light suddenly burst in his eyes. Waving the black gourd in his hand, his aura raged and suddenly blasted toward the few faint waves. "Get the hell out!" At the same time, the black tide frantically flooded out of his black gourd as though billowing black river in the void, and instantly submerged the place where those faint fluctuating auras originated. Mercy! We're on the same side. 3 figures in black robes appeared out of the blue and stared at the black flood terror with horrified expressions. The convict Arena's ears, It seems you're here to investigate his identity. Old Sycamore's eyes flashed with coldness. His immortal sword suddenly split into 7 in an instant and shredded the 3 people after they were trapped in the black tide, and directly annihilated their immortal souls. Immediately after, he put away the black gourd and completely erased all the traces left in this place before disappearing. Half a month later, Tang Xiu brought Battle Pang, Star Tears, Dragonfly, And the 6 perfected golden immortals he just purchased back to Agaric Castle. Tang Xiu was completely broke today without even a piece of immortal stone left. Buzz. He pinched the message token and, half an hour later, the old man who sold the information to Tang Xiu appeared in front of him. Have you obtained the Soul Pursuit token, senior? The old man looked excited and hurriedly asked as he looked at Tang Xiu. No, I haven't gone to the vast martial sect yet. Tang Xiu shook his head and slowly said, I went to find some people to help me so as not to let anything else slip away. Anyway, let's head there now. Even if the vast martial sect has a perfected golden immortal ancestor, they won't be able to keep the token this time. And you, take us to the vast martial sect. The old man looked horrified and hurriedly said, Senior, even if you have invited some helpers and you also have perfected golden immortals at your side, it's just impossible to obtain the Soul Pursuit token. If they just go crazy and activate the token to contact Battle Soul Supreme, we're all gonna die. No worries. Tang Xiu sneered. I'd never take a risk without complete preparation. As long as your info is correct, the Soul Pursuit token will definitely be mine. Chapter 1330, A Grandiose Blitzkrieg Attack. The old man looked at the 6 strange faces and faintly sensed that these people were very strong, at least at the Golden Immortal stage. Furthermore, this mysterious man had been preparing for so long before he was ready to storm the vast martial sect, so the chance was very high that he came really prepared. I'm going, then, the old man gritted his teeth and replied in a deep voice. Tang Xiu nodded at his reply. Under the guide of this old man, it took them 2 days to come to a small land in this immortal domain. While looking at the pavilions in the dense forest of the mountain range, Tang Xiu asked, So, this is where the vast martial sect resides? Yes, this is their place, said the old man. Between his words, a murderous glint flashed in his eyes, apparently full of hatred toward the vast martial sect. Tang Xiu shifted to Battle Pang and lightly said, You and Dragonfly are to stay here. I believe I don't have to tell you what to do when something unexpected happens, yes? Battle Pang glanced at the old man and nodded. Please rest assured, Master. I know what to do. Tang Xiu nodded slightly. Then he shifted to the 6 perfected golden immortals and indifferently said, Before you start working for me, I'm giving you hope first. Pledge your loyalty to me for 5,000 years. I'll give you back your freedom as long as you're still alive by then. At that time, you're free to choose whether you will keep staying with me or leave directly. Further, I'll also continuously provide you with various cultivation resources and teach you various divine and secret arts. The bigger your merits, the more handsome the rewards you'll obtain. Do you understand? Really? The 6 people were surprised and asked in unison. You can count on every word spoken by Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, for I've never broken my promise. Tang Xiu nodded. The 6 people quickly exchanged glances and immediately nodded one after another. They knelt on one knee at the same time and vowed in a deep voice. We're willing to serve you, Master. Tang Xiu took out 6 precantator artifacts and threw them over, saying, I have no high-grade immortal artifacts available for you at the moment. You will refine these precantator artifacts. Use these weapons for the time being. Sablefiend Scorpio took the precantator weapon, carefully observed it, and then blurted out in horror, Isn't this the weapon of Diabolo's precantator clan? Heavens! This is at least the high-grade weapon the combat generals of that clan used. This weapon is definitely comparable to a 7th-grade immortal weapon. The other 5 were also shocked. They were all perfected golden immortals, old monsters who had lived for thousands of years. In particular, Sablefiend Scorpio had lived for tens of thousands of years and was naturally able to recognize the value of these precantator artifacts. I have a lot of such weapons in my hand, said Tang Xiu casually. There are even better ones, a lot of them. As long as you are loyal to me, not only will you become stronger in the future, there will also be countless resources for you. Sable-fiend Scorpio's group of 6 glanced at each other and said, "We're pledging our allegiance till our death, Master." Tang Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Then, he shifted to the surprised Star Tears and calmly said, "All right, this time. What you have to do is help me get the Soul Pursuit token from the vast martial sect. I'm sure all of you already know what the Soul Pursuit token is. I need this object since I'm going to need Battle Soul Supreme's help in dealing with some issues in the future. Thus, you must storm over the vast martial sect's perfected golden immortal ancestor with overwhelming strength. You are not to give him any chance of using the Soul Pursuit token." "Understood," everyone replied in a deep voice. 15 minutes later. Tang Xiu glanced around. Just as he was about to take out the message token, 3 streaks of light quickly flashed from the distance and appeared in front of Tang Xiu. Tang Yin, donning her usual black robe, arrived with Zenith Venerable and Siwei Monarch and respectfully reported. "We've destroyed all the protection arrays surrounding the vast martial sect, Grand Master. They will no longer be able to activate their sect's protection array even if they discover us." Tang Xiu nodded with satisfaction and sneered. "Ha! We got 9 perfected golden immortals. If we fail to get the vast martial sect's Soul Pursuit token, that will likely become the shame of your lives. Anyways, commence the action, now." "Understood." The 9 people nodded and their figures suddenly bolted away as fast as meteors. In nearly a flash, they appeared in the sky over the vast martial sect. Shortly after, the 9 of them struck together and directly stunned all the vast martial sect's disciples below the golden immortal stage. Even the golden immortals of this sect were all coughing up a mouthful of blood and looked terrified. "Which thieves came to provoke my vast martial sect?" 3 figures streaked up into the sky and instantly appeared in midair. Frantic killing intent gleamed in the eyes of the leader among them, a white-haired old man in a white robe. But when he clearly saw that the 9 people in the surroundings turned out to be perfected golden immortals, however, he sensed the terrifying pressure of their auras. He was terrified. "Suppress him." As Tang Xiu and Tang Yin appeared thousands of meters in the sky out of nowhere, he shouted coldly. The 9 perfected golden immortals attacked fiercely at the same time. Aside from that elderly perfected golden immortal, the other 2 were late-stage golden immortals and just a hair away from breaking through to the perfected golden immortal stage. Both of them spurted out a mouthful of blood at the same time after getting bombarded by Star Tears and Sable-fiend Scorpio. They didn't directly die and fainted instead. "Who the hell are you, people? What kind of enmity does the vast martial sect have with you, to think that you even dispatched 9 perfected golden immortals to destroy my sect?" The white-haired old man tried to fight back desperately but was still seriously injured. "Give up your resistance." Tang Xiu ruthlessly and coldly said, "We can decimate everyone in your sect. If you do not, nothing will be left alive in your sect, including chickens and dogs." The white-haired old man furiously roared. But facing the fierce onslaught of 9 perfected golden immortals, he was forced to directly give up his resistance. As Star Tears captured and sealed him, Tang Xiu floated up in front of him, looked at him, and grabbed his collar before towing him into the tallest building below. "This place is the hall to enshrine and pay homage to your ancestors, yes?" Tang Xiu asked with a smile. The white-haired old man looked as though he was dying and nodded. "That's right. Stun all those golden immortals hiding here," ordered Tang Xiu with a smile. In a flash, 4 figures disappeared. In just several breaths, the 4 soon appeared near Tang Xiu out of nowhere. Tang Xiu shifted to the old man again and smilingly said, "You have quite the treasure yet you have no strength to preserve it. Quite the easy way to invite calamity upon you, am I right?" "You're correct," the ancestor of vast martial sect replied in a muffled voice. "Well, since you also think that what I said makes sense, take out the Soul Pursuit token received by your vast martial sect. Don't ask me how I know. I have my own intel channel. The vast martial sex ancestor could only let out a mirthless smile and took a black token directly from his interspatial ring, and handed it to Tang Xiu, saying bitterly, "This is the soul pursuit token." Tang Xiu held the token and fiddled it in his hand for a while before he smiled lightly. "Yup, this is indeed the soul pursuit token. I obtained 2 of them before but didn't expect to get a third." "Well, you're a sensible man. I can spare all disciples of your vast martial sect since you gave me the soul pursuit token. But you also know what to say and what not to after we leave, don't you?" "I know." The vast martial sex ancestor bitterly replied. "Then I won't waste more words since you already understand." Tang Xiu nodded with satisfaction. "But from now on, you can say that I owe the vast martial sect a favor, so I'm leaving this message token. If your sect were to face a life and death crisis, use this token to notify me and I'll send my people to the rescue." The vast martial sex ancestor froze for a moment and he said in disbelief, "You mean?" "Well, let's just say that I hate to take advantage of others for nothing," said Tang Xiu lightly. "You may say that my methods are not honorable, but I have my own reason to do so. A very strong reason. I did sever your chance to have Battle Soul Supreme's assistance, but I owe you a favor in exchange." "No worries. Even if the person you must face in the future is a supremacy stage expert, I can still exterminate him for you." Having said that, Tang Xiu nodded to Star Tears. Star Tears lifted up the seal on the vast martial sex ancestor and indifferently said, "What my heavenly emperor has promised will be fulfilled. You can choose whether you want your vast martial sect to be annihilated and be the target of endless pursuit, or to remain silent and keep this favor for use in the future. The choice is yours." Tang Xiu took out a healing elixir and handed it to the vast martial sex ancestor and then immediately left with the rest. They left, just like that? Disbelief was cast on the face of vast martial sex ancestor. He originally thought that today was the day he met his death, but he never expected that the other party only demanded the soul pursuit token. They didn't even kill anyone. After a long while, he muttered to himself, "Who exactly are they?" After obtaining the soul pursuit token, Tang Xiu didn't immediately contact Battle Soul Supreme. He had met this Supreme several times in the past and even fought side by side with him in the Endless Abyss, to kill a lot of extraterrestrial demons in the outer territory. But when it came to friendship, they had no deep bonds and could only be said to be ordinary friends at best. This Battle Soul Supreme was just a hair inferior to him in his heyday. Therefore, Tang Xiu decided not to use this soul pursuit token unless it was absolutely necessary. The best time was to use it to invite Battle Soul Supreme in the final decisive battle. "Shall we go back now, Grand Master?" Seeing Tang Xiu and the rest return, Tang An quickly asked. Tang Xiu nodded and said, "We'll return directly. There are some things that should be done." Tang An had no idea what these issues were about, but she still nodded. Prior to this, she received a message from Tang Xiu to bring Siwei Monarch and Zenith Venerable over, so there were only Apotheon Mu and her master, Gu Yan, at the helm in the Great Tang Empire's stronghold in the Misty Spring Ocean. "I hereby appoint you all as the protector elders of the Great Tang Empire." Before returning, Tang Xiu solemnly spoke to the 6 perfected golden immortals.